seconds. So I just want all of us to be very close to our devices. And those of us that should be on camera, I would also advise that we're on camera at this point. So in 30 seconds, we're starting. I want to welcome you, Mr. Richard Sin Okechukwu. Thank you for joining us. And also, Ibifiri Bob Mano, I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. Felix Wabukos, thank you so much for joining us. And every other person that is joining us at this moment. Let me welcome you to this webinar 2020. And this is a very special webinar. And this webinar is intended to address a very salient aspect of Nigeria's economy. Of course, you understand that the palm oil industry has the prospect of providing employment for millions of unskilled and semi-skilled people in our country. And this has been demonstrated by other economy. And we know that with proper focus on production of commodity of large-scale commercial values, improvement in the production of oil palm can effectively mitigate the poverty level in Nigeria. And one of the things we're trying to do through this webinar today is to provide a tool and share information on the sector to refocus attention on the potential of the palm oil production and also highlight the potential for boosting the Nigerian economy by concentrating on the enterprise dynamic in the palm oil sector. Once again, distinguished gentlemen, everyone, I want to welcome you to this very important webinar, which is put together by Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum. May I say at this point that Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum, Reif, is 100% private sector-led, non-governmental, non-political, and non-profit making initiative established for the purpose of advancing the economic interest of the country as a whole through developing the informal sector. As implied in the slogan, driving the local economy, the mission of the Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum is to position the private sector to be the drivers of the local economy, amongst other things. And the Rivers Entrepreneur and Investors Forum also seeks ways of creating the enabling environment for businesses to thrive with a view to attracting investments, both local and foreign. So I want to welcome you, esteemed gentlemen, from highly placed organizations and different sectors in our country. I want to thank you so much for being part of this webinar. Please, I want you to be mindful that some of the advices, some of the knowledge, some of the information you will be sharing with us on this webinar may be used on some of the open medium. We might use some of the content on radio broadcasts. We might be using some of the content on newspaper publications, and also we might be using some of the content on television. And more importantly, at the end of this webinar, we intend to package a kind of proposal, a kind of advice to the authorities on how to reposition this sector. Once again, I want to welcome you to this very special webinar. I'm just going to quickly introduce our host today, who is the president of the Rivers Entrepreneur and Investors Forum, Mr. Ibifiri Bob Mano. Mr. Ibifiri Bob Mano is passionate about the local economy and has been doing so much to provide solutions on how to drive the local economy so that it can stand on all legs and also compete favorably with the international community. Thank you so much, Mr. Ibifiri Bob Mano. Thank you for joining us. And quickly, we allow you to take your welcome address. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, our host. Thank you, the moderator, Mr. Shegun Wolabi. Thank you to the guest, and thank you to the public that would have connected. Well, this event is actually put together owing to its importance of the sector.
Well, I apologize. I think Mr. Bifri Bobman is having some network issue. But again, we just need to give him some few minutes because I can notice that his line is buffering. So we just give him some few minutes to reconnect with us. If you can hear
And
us. Okay.
are you with me,
Yes, we're with
Shegun?
you. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yes, it's a 100% private sector-led initiative. We have our slogan as driving the local economy because we believe as key players in the private sector, we at a point need to contribute our quota in driving the economy of the country. And this is the initiative that would have informed our decision to underpin this event, your part of this webinar. Now we have key stakeholders, key players in this sector that will shed light, and eventually the outcome of this event is going to be summarized into a communique that would engage the federal government, the state government, and the key players to see how we could get those changes to be implemented in the system. Nigeria practices a mono economy, and we from the private sector
Again, I think the network is playing a very hard one.
we believe that. Okay, are you hearing me now, Shegun?
Yes, we can hear you now. I think, yes, this is better.
Is it better now?
It's better now.
Okay, sorry. So I guess I would have to go all over again.
Now, you were telling us that Nigeria practices a mono economy, and that's the point you stopped.
Okay, good. Yeah, the country practices a mono economy, and we feel the potentials in the economy of Nigeria in the country is so much that we need to begin to urge the policymakers to begin to look away from just one product, because the agricultural space holds the key. Because currently in the world, Africa has about 60% of the arable land all around the world. So, and Nigeria being the giant of Africa, possesses the major market in that space and the major landmass in that space. So we need to begin to tap into it, because the value that would be derived from agriculture is so much, because the jobs are there. You know, the needed DFIs, foreign direct investments, could actually be attracted and could be generated. So what we need as players in this industry is the right policies, and that's why we felt it is important. Personally, as an individual, my business interest is deeply entrenched in agriculture, and I feel the pain just like each and every one of us are. And we know that if we come together as a united front, we should be able to prefer those solutions, and we should be able to unlock the keys in that value chain. So without taking too much of your time, I'll leave us in the very capable hands of Mr. Shegun Wolabi, our moderator, to take this thing up. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bifri Bobmano, and thank you for that introductory welcome, and also to let us know where we are as a country as it has to do with agriculture. Once again, let me welcome every of our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar with the theme, Development of Agricultural Value Chain, an Alternative to a Monoculture Economy. My name is Shegun Wolabi. I'm a journalist and a broadcaster So I thank you sincerely. Now, let me just quickly lay down some ground rules. Ground rule number one is whenever the panelists are making their presentation, we will not allow for interruption. And as such, all the mics will be muted, and the administrator would ensure that if you have a question, you may as well go ahead. I think I went offline a bit there, and yes, network again. So I was talking about the panelists. Now, for the panelists, you have 30 minutes each to make your presentation. So if you have questions related to the ground rules, please, you might just want to ask those questions at the moment. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with the first.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, it's very unfortunate. The line was breaking. I couldn't hear the ground rules all over, but at least I have had some bit of it, and then I at least know that when one is talking, you just have to listen. But I don't know what are some of the ground rules you have just mentioned because the line cut off. Yeah, but I don't know if we can just go ahead.
All right. Well, I apologize for the poor network, but again, let me repeat the ground rules again. One of the ground rules is that when someone is presenting, you mute your microphone. And the essence is to ensure that we don't have other noise coming in and we don't have interference. So that's that. And in the second ground rule, if you have an observation, please, we will not want you to interject. There is a tool here that allows you to raise your hand. Just use that to raise your hand. When you raise your hand, we will see that you're raising your hand and we will acknowledge that and we will call upon you to make your observation known. And the third ground rule is that if you have a question to ask, we will want for you to type your question. Type it. There is also a tool that allows you to type your question. When you type the question, we will read out those questions and we will have the panelists that is concerned address those questions. And for the panelists, you have 30 minutes to make your presentation. Out of the 30 minutes, we expect you to make 20 minutes of presentation while we utilize 10 minutes to take follow-up on some of the issues you raised, get clarification, and also to respond to questions. I want to thank you sincerely, every one of you, and thank you so much for your patience, and thank you also for joining us in this webinar. I quite appreciate all the knowledge you'll be profiling this morning and all the contribution you'll be making. Quickly, let me welcome our first panelist. Our first panelist will be speaking on oil palm value chain as an alternative to a monoculture economy. And our panelist is a very versatile man. He's a director of Presco PLC and SIAT Nigeria Limited, a chartered accountant and consultant with extensive multi-industry career that includes, among others, professional practices as KPMG, and expert management of large-scale industrial oil palm plantations at industry-leading enterprise in the Nigeria and Ghanaian oil palm and vegetable industry. Presco PLC Ghana, Oil Palm Development Company Limited, Okomo Oil Palm PLC. Is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, an associate of Chartered Institute of Taxation, Nigeria, a member of Institute of Directors, United Kingdom, and has a keen interest in strategy, corporate governance, and leadership. Our panelist is a member of the National Council of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, a member of the Executive Leaders Group of the Nigeria Agri-Business Group, and Nigeria Agricultural Award Achiever in Agriculture Awards 2018. Distinguished personality, I want you to join me in welcoming Mr. Felix Owunchekwa Nwabiko. Thank you so much, sir. Good morning, Mr. Felix Nwabiko, and we'll be having you speak to us right now. Over to you, Mr. Felix.
Good afternoon, Segun, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure sharing this time with you today on what I believe is a very pertinent issue to our country, and indeed can be extended out of here to the West African sub-region and the world at large. Today, we want to look at an issue that has been very topical. It's not novel in any way, but the truth is that as much as we've been talking about it, we want to ask ourselves a question whether we've found the answers. So I believe that our sharing together this afternoon is to put our heads together, both from the presenters, the organizers, and the audience, to see whether we can begin to find increased answers and solutions to this question of moving away from a mono-economy to a well-diversified economy for the benefit of all. Thank you once again. I've been assigned to eventually end up shedding some light on the oil palm as part of the solution. But I will start with an introduction that is general, since we're talking of agriculture generally here, and looking at from the point of view of it's helping us to diversify our economy. I want to cast my mind back in introducing this subject of development of the agriculture value chain as an alternative to a monoculture economy. I want to cast my mind back to 2016. In 2016, when the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, was actually launching the Green Alternative, the agriculture promotion policy, he said something that is very pertinent and that resonates with people like us. And I'm going to quote him here. Quote, "The present administration came into office to meet an economy in a meltdown, and we have to take difficult decisions on short, medium term in order to repair the huge damage that was done, especially by the dependence on oil. The worst, not investing in infrastructure, deepening the diversification of our economy, or even building our reserves when oil sold at over $100 per barrel. We knew that we had to set aright and put back the economy on a fast lane, inclusive growth, job creation for our huge population. One of the most critical components of that plan is to position agriculture, the arrowhead of our economic recovery efforts. There is no question at all that if we get agriculture right, we will get our economy right," unquote. That's exactly what the Vice President said way back in 2016. And up till now, there have been measures that have been taken. We are still there. Now, my question today is, why do we need to develop the agricultural value chain? And from there, we go into the oil palm space. Clearly, it is obvious, as was said by the organizer, that agriculture sector remains the major employer of Nigerians. In agriculture, we employ 2/3 of the labor force, and this is according to FAO. 75% of rural dwellers engage in agriculture as farmers. So it's the biggest space that we can think of. And of course, it's in the rural places that you will find oil palm anyway. Another reason why we have to start talking about developing the agricultural value chain is that the growth potential in Nigeria's agricultural sector is immense. Recent evidence has suggested that Nigeria has the potential to grow output from 14.85 trillion to 38.4 trillion by 2030. And this is according to FAMRD. And this is underpinned by growing global demand for food. Also, in diversifying developing the agri chain, we will as a nation, as a people, be pursuing the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially with reference to the eradication of hunger and poverty. We also know that there are measures. If we take measures that only focus on increasing yields without focusing in equal measure in investing in our processing and other aspects of the value chain, what we will get eventually will be a lead to short-term gains, but not long-term sustainable growth and the development for actors across the chain, actors meaning down the value chain. And this exactly was the submission of Jacques Rankens in 2011. We also know that today, and that's why I said that this discussion is not novel, that value chain thinking is now the only way to revolutionize agriculture and the food industry. Improvements in the effectiveness and efficiency of agri-value chain, gentlemen, ladies, can also enhance benefits to all participants in the value chain. And that's what we want to say, that participants in the value chain will derive benefits. In this country, can we actually develop our value chain? Yes, we can. The reason we can do that is that we have no shortage of the endowment of the resources to do that. Whether it's physical, whether it's human, whether it's in the knowledge base, the technology, and infrastructure, these values we do have. But incidentally, it is also these factors that enable or constrain the development of the value chain. So the value chain that we look at here, and when on a broad-based basis, and of course, agriculture, oil palm benefits from that also. It applies to oil palm as it applies to the general agri-land base. Just for emphasis, we look at the pre-production stages, and in the pre-production stages, we're looking at seed suppliers, we're looking at fertilizer suppliers, irrigation businesses, all the things that constitute players in that particular space. Then when we come to the production, we're looking at our farmers, we're looking at associations, cooperatives, everyone that is involved in that particular space. Presco, that I represent, plays in that space. SIAT Nigeria Limited plays in that space. And then we have the space of the processing. Those who did the processing, you can find a player that is in more than one space. Then we look at the distribution, how is our distribution doing? And we also look at how to get it down to the consumers, the retail aspect of it. That's the value chain that we are trying to look at. And that's what we want to see that we develop. When we come to looking at this development, what do we really need to do? Today, one of the hindrances in developing the value chain of agriculture is a combination of issues. There's the issue of policy, there's the issue of regulation, there's the issue of reinstitutional reforms that are required. All this needs to work together, develop a comprehensive approach across policy, across regulatory and across institutional reforms to do what? To be able to remove the constraints that have hindered us to be able to develop our agri-value chain. And these are the things that we want to set our minds on. Even when I speak from the point of view of oil palm, but in general, the combination of these factors is what will help us, enable us, or deter us. What we do with these factors will either enable us or deter us from developing our agri-value chain. I repeat them. What do we do in the space of policy? What are we doing in the space of regulations? And what are we doing in the space of institutional reforms? They are in all of these things, when we decompose them and look at them one by one from each side, which we may not be able to conclude in a space like this, but these are the issues that need to be addressed in order to be able to develop our agri-value chain. And it is said that countries and projects that need to identify the infrastructure requirements for the development of their value chains. We also have to develop models for including the poor and marginalized groups, and this was submitted by AgriSmart in 2014. This was their submission. Another factor that we need to pay attention to is innovation. What are we doing in the space of innovation, in research and development? For it now, going into the space, even from this point of view, if you look at research and development, for instance, in our group, the Presco, SNL, the SIAT group, we place premium on research. We drive research because we know that the future of the growth of the oil palm sector is on research. It is true that we say that land, we have quite a lot of arable land. And the organizer told us this morning that all over Africa, we have enormous arable land. But the truth also is that this arable land is not limitless, and it lends itself to a lot of demand for housing, for farming, for quite a number of things. So land continue to be under competition. And therefore, land, if you look at oil palm, for instance, oil palm requires land. And as we progress in this discussion, we see that the land requirement of oil palm going forward is huge. But it's not just going to be available because of the different demands that is upon land. So what should we do? The answer will be in research and development. We should be conducting research, which is what we do in our group. We should be conducting research, for instance, to put it simply, how do we get more from the same hectare of land, from the same size of land? How do I get more? If I have only 10,000 hectares or 5 hectares or 2 hectares, or I look at the outgrowers or the smallholders, and they have probably 500 hectares collectively as a cooperative, or 2 hectares by an individual, how do each player get more from the same space? The answer will be to conduct research first in how do we reduce the gestation period? We know today that in oil palm, it matures between 3.5 and 4 years. We also know that there are standards today where you get so much fresh fruit bunches per ton. So research should be targeted, as saying today, take for discussion purposes, that we come to a point where we're getting from 5 tons, 6 tons, 7 tons, and progressing to 18 tons and 20 tons per hectare. How can we do it as such that our beginning point will be to get 8 tons and then jump to 15 tons and jump to 30 tons and 35 tons per hectare? Not only that, that is in the area of the FFB. Now looking at oil palm to produce palm oil. Today, what do we see in palm oil? We see shortage. So if land, for instance, is not going to increase and we want to produce more, both for the local market and turn Nigeria to a net exporter of palm oil, what should research be doing? Research should be looking at how to increase the yield. Say, for instance, if people are achieving 18% ton per hectare per ton of FFB, fresh fruit bunches, or 20% extraction rates or 24% extraction rate, how can we develop this business to the point where we can now be having a minimum as a starting point, for instance, 25% oil extraction rate? So R&D is very important in what we are discussing here, that while we focus attention on policies and regulations and institutional reforms to be able to address the bottlenecks that we have in the agri-value chain, research plays a very important role. We have research institutions across the country. Attention, and that has to do with institutional reforms, for instance. Attention should be paid to those research institutions to be able that their activity will be able to benefit even the smallholder of oil palm who owns just 1 hectare or 2 hectares. Now, coming to why is it then important that I know that some other colleagues here this afternoon will focus on other crops, but the development of this value chain, as it concerns oil palm, is very important because of the importance of oil palm to the national economy. What do we see today? Oil palm is one aspect of endeavor that can help this nation to conserve foreign exchange. Not only that, oil palm can play the role of attracting enormous foreign exchange into this country. I'll give you an example. I have before me here an analysis for this week. And from this analysis, you'll see that over the last couple of months, the price of oil palm on the world market has been climbing. Today, as of this week, oil palm sells for in the world market $921 per ton. A situation where we develop this aspect of our national economy to the point where we begin to pursue self-sufficiency and be a net exporter of this product. That's the kind of thing that we'll be looking at. And so that's one thing that oil palm does for us. In the foreign exchange earnings is a potential high earner. And even while we are not earning, is a potential conservator of the foreign exchange. In terms of job creation, oil palm is one sector that can create job more than any other sector within the agri space. Because, for instance, between Presco and SNL, for instance, where we cultivate today, we have cultivated 25,000 hectares of oil palm. These two companies jointly employ 14,000 people. So if we expand this space, that gives us an idea of how many people will be taken off the streets and given employment. Oil palm contributes seriously also to the issue of our food security. Now, we also know that oil palm is rural-based. Now, we are in a nation where you have cities that are developed and the rural area is not developed. But if we push the development of oil palm and we expand the value chain such that the benefits, I did mention earlier that one of the benefits of developing the value chain is that all players will benefit. And that those players include those who are in the rural areas that are involved in the oil palm sector. So if we push this sector, it means that we're also moving development in various forms to those rural areas. So we don't have a few great cities and a mass of undeveloped rural areas. That's also what oil palm and agriculture in general can also do for us. And job creation, oil palm is also a source of security management, because when you have jobs, when people are taken off the streets, it has an impact on the crime levels, on people who will ordinarily be tempted to go into crime because they are not occupied. But then, what are the critical issues that affect this industry when we begin to look at how to develop it and address the issues of expanding its value chain? First of all, you'll see that as in any endeavor, you have the issue of production, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. I've spoken about land. Labor, we just discussed, there's labor in abundance. So if we push to expand this, we are sure that labor abounds in Nigeria. But capital becomes an issue. And that is where, in order to expand the value chain in oil palm and agri in general, what happens in terms of funding and financing is very important. I want to acknowledge what Central Bank of Nigeria is already doing now. And of course, a number of oil palm developers in the country have benefited, but there are still a lot more that is yet to benefit, in which case we should be looking at the regulatory side of things. We're looking at what reforms we need to do to ensure that these benefits across board. Because if we want to develop the Nigerian oil palm sector today to what it should be, it will not be by only the new clause owners alone. You have to develop the smallholder sector. You have to develop the outgrower sector. And these are the ones that are finding it difficult today to access such fundings. So we should be looking at how do we make these fundings available to these people that can constitute 60% of the grown oil palm in Nigeria. It's important. That's one key area we have to look at in looking at the value chain of this particular. There is also a serious knowledge gap within the industry. We know that the big ones today are driven from outside. So we need to develop, we need to invest in the development of the knowledge in this industry within the country. We need to develop the future entrepreneurs of this country. There is a critical shortage of indigenous entrepreneurs. One of the things that scares people, and I want to say it here, is that we have a high level of buy and sell mentality within this economy. Oil palm is one of those things that is long in terms of investment. You invest, by the time you finish planting and you start to reap, you start to make money, you're looking at some 7 or 8 years people are not patient. I want to say that patience is required in order to develop the value chain in agriculture. It does not lend itself easily to buy and sell. So I want to encourage entrepreneurs in Nigeria to adopt that patience and come in, because this is a sector that is crucial and beneficial to the economy. But we need to pull together, understand how it works, and our patience is one of them. The land issues also are there, but there we will deal with them as they come up. Government is certain, if you look at Edo State where we are, government is doing what it can to make our land accessible to serious oil palm growers. I want to call on other people within the oil palm belt of Nigeria to also pay attention to that. I've been given a signal, I'll stop here. Probably in the next one, I will take questions, or I can add, but to round up, what is the way forward for oil palm? Government and the private sector are working together is critical to develop the value chain in oil palm, just as it is in other sectors of this. Then also, we have spoken to us about finance, and I'm calling on government to try to make available, make it easy for the smallholders and the outgrowers, whether they work as cooperatives, whether they work as associations, to be able to access the funding that is right for oil palm. Oil palm being a long-term business requires long-term financing at proper cost. I will stop here, and then I'm happy to come on again. Thank you.
And I must thank you sincerely, Mr. Felix. Thank you so very much. And quite interesting, Felix Nwabuko there, taking us through the gamut of the challenges, the prospects, and what we need to do from the policy, the needs to take a look at the policy, the needs to have another look at our regulation, infrastructure, and the reform, and also the ordinary man's view on the issue relating to the oil palm industry. I want to thank you sincerely for that wonderful presentation. Now, for all of our panelists, and if you have a question on some of the issues raised by Mr. Felix Nwabuko there, please kindly send us a comment on the chat segment. I will gladly take all of your comments. But quickly, I have a couple of questions here to ask Mr. Felix Nwabuko. Now, you talked about the issue of policy. I was thinking you're going to go deep to policy, particularly when you looked at in relation to a country like Malaysia, who seems to have taken from Nigeria, has come up with the right policy and seems to have done very well in its oil palm industry, who is an industry expert. In what way and what kind of policy formulation would you want to see that you think would take us to the right step?
Thank you, Shegun. In terms of policy, I'll start with two, I'll dwell in two areas here. Number one is that the example that you have given in Malaysia, we have worked on papers, which we even have submitted to government, that lies with government. What is it that made it work in Malaysia that we should learn? You know, take examples from what works. Today, things that stands out for Malaysia is how is that sector governed? How is that sector assisted by government? It is not just a question of having the financial funding available, but there is, Malaysia has got what we call the Malaysian Palm Oil Board. And what we have been advocating with government recently, and we had people, you know, go to Senate to at least submit something, is that Nigeria needs a Palm Oil Council. Recently, Senate deliberated on the creation of the Rice Council. Nigeria needs an oil palm council. The oil palm council will assist government so very much with people who know what it takes to develop oil palm to drive. So government makes the policy, they help in policy making, but in actual fact, they will see the implementation of policy. And I want to say here, Shegun, that we are a country that is not short of policies. As a matter of fact, we make extremely good policies. But there are two things about our policies. The implementation of our policies are faulty. and after a while drops off, and then policy somersault. Some of the policies we made in the past, if we still work, we don't drive them, we don't implement them. So I believe that government should create for the oil palm sector to really come to where we want it to be. We need, I don't tell the story of Malaysia came in 1960 or whatever. I don't tell. The reason I didn't say, oh, we were leaders in oil palm, Malaysia coming, because it is a story that everybody knows. We should now begin to look at what is it that Malaysia did with what it was. The thing that they did that worked for them is that they have a Malaysian Oil Palm Council that drives regulation, works on policy, reels out, helps the operators in the system, scans the environment globally, and are able to bring in data that can help the operators to do things. They are able to have standards that must be met. It's not a question of Mr. A in one part is doing his own thing the way he likes it and all that. We cannot. Today in the world, you have what you call the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, that governs the production of palm oil. Big companies, global companies will not buy palm oil from anybody where there is no traceability. RSPO is about traceability. RSPO is about doing things in a sustainable and proper manner. RSPO addresses issues like child labor and all manner of, let's say, food package. Malaysia Palm Oil Board is the body that helps government to drive those regulations and ensure that things are done the proper way. And that's why the Malaysian oil can be acceptable outside of their borders. If we start producing palm oil today in Nigeria, one of the things that will make our oil hinder our export is the standard. So I know there are standard organizations in Nigeria, but you need specialized standards institutions that understand the industry and the subject that will help the nation to achieve its goals. So one of the things in policy is that we have to create a palm oil council. The other thing is that we have research institutions like I mentioned. Our research institutions are not fit for purpose by the way they are governed. My advocacy concerning our research institutions is that we should tinker with the governance. All of our research institutions are just attached to one ministry or the other. So they get subvention, they get funded by government, etc. So you go there, they are not doing exactly what they do. Most of them don't deliver value to those who should use their activity. So how can we change this? My prescription is that the governance has to be looked at. The intention is great, but the governance is poor. If we involve private sector in the governance of research institutions in this country, we will get benefit. When you go to places like United Kingdom, whether you talk of the Arts and Humanities Research Council, whether you talk of the Medical Research Council, the EPS has the Engineering and Physical Research Council, you will see private sector involvement, that most of the funds that they use to execute research actually comes from the private sector. And the only reason the private sector puts money in those research institutions is because they are involved in the governance. And therefore they can make a decision, like I said, on our own, as a group, we are driving research in the areas that I'm mentioning. But those are the researches that the government institution that's created for oil palm should be driving. So if private sector is involved in the research, private sector and the governance rather, private sector will sit with the researchers and said, this is what is happening outside in other climes. This is what we want to achieve in this industry. And they make the decision on the research agenda. Private sector will very happily put money into that place. But private sector will be worried to put money today because they are not involved in the governance and therefore cannot sign off on the appropriate use of that money for the targeted research question that private sector wants to drive. That's why you will see people like us driving our own research because we know what we want to drive at, and therefore we put that money can also be put in a research institution together with other companies that are in our space that will also be interested. So for policy, I'll be looking at the governance I'm talking about the governance of our research institutions, whether it be for oil palm or for other agri space, and also the area of this thing. So that's what I will say there, that policy creates a palm oil council that can take care of the palm oil development in Nigeria, and look at our research institutions and make them fit for purpose by bringing in private sector into the governance thereof. Then they will help to develop the research agenda and make sure that that research agenda benefits even the smallholder that is in one rural part of the country.
Great, fantastic, great insight there. Mr. Nwabuko, thank you so much. Beautiful questions. I would have loved to engage you more on some of this, but again, we have other questions coming in. Thank you so much, Tumelo Makasine. And you said, what would be the immediate binding constraints that would need to be addressed in order to create enabler for the industry? And you want Mr. Nwabuko to address that. So there you have it from Tumelo. Tumelo wants you to look at the immediate binding constraints that would need to be addressed in order to create enablers for the oil palm industry.
Here, I'm going to say that one of the enablers that I will love to see is, I would love to see entrepreneurs in the land take interest in the development of oil palm. I know that the barriers to entry are high, but I also know, as someone that operates in this space, that there are people who can come together and be able to scale over those barriers. So it becomes a question of interest. And that interest goes back to the comment that I made earlier, that people going into business, most people choose where they can make returns 24 hours after investment. But oil palm is an endeavor where you are guaranteed return once you do it properly, and even for longer term than where people are heading to. So the first enabler is, how can we get efficiently interested? I know from my interactions that there are quite a number of entrepreneurs that have started going into it for 2,000 hectares, 1,500 hectares, but these entrepreneurs, if we pull our funds together, can go for 20,000 hectares, 30,000 hectares, 40,000 hectares. These same entrepreneurs, they are investing in some other things that that is more than what it would take them to invest in 15, 20,000. So interest, never. How do we get our people to get sufficiently interested? You go to Malaysia, you go to Indonesia, you see oil palm plantations that are beyond the eye can see. They are not government owned. They are driven by private enterprise. So that's one thing. What do we have to do? We have to ask that question. If we create this Palm Oil Council, can the Palm Oil Council come up with actions that can now begin to give people confidence to come into this area? And then we begin to have a lot of the Okumus and the Prescos and the SEATs that are purely, driven by other private investors. Then the other thing is that we have started to deal with it. Another enabler is what I said about the funding. This is long-term business. It's not the commercial bank facility that can help you. The only people that can touch the commercial bank facility to develop oil palm are companies that have come to a particular stage in their development, where they are now able to turn out gain some income through sales to be able to service those facilities, and are just adding on. But for new entrants to come in there, they need the right type of financing. CBN today has financing where the entire tenure is 10 years and single-digit interest rates, 3 years moratorium plus 7 years repayment period, which is better than what has ever existed. But like I said, how many people? Today, the study we have is that if we want to produce oil palm at the level we want to produce it, because depending on which source you look at, you will be told that we are anywhere between 600,000 metric tons and 800,000 metric tons short in this country. And to bridge that gap means planting more and more and more. And because it goes with gestation period, it's not something you set a 5-year, 6-year limit to say, which is no, it will continue. So now it's not the big players that will do that. Study has shown that you need at least 60% of that development to come from the smallholders and outgrowers. But these are the same people that cannot today easily access that available funding that is better than what exists with the commercial banks. So the enabler is what do we do to make them make it accessible to them? The issue of land, of course, we will know is there. Government should be able to do something for people to get land and own land and process land, delays in getting title, government, those are all the institutional reforms that should happen.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Wabuko. I'm just going to ask you one more question, and please, I would like for you to answer this question in 2 minutes, if possible, because we need to go to the next panelist. Dr. Mrs. Gloria Gabriel Akanibo, she's asking, the CBN expects oil palm growers to present certified land lease agreement as part of precondition for release of funds. A lot of rural farmers find it difficult to go through this process. How can the process of assessing the CBN loan be made simple for farmers to assess? If you could do that in 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah, in 2 minutes. That resonates with the point I already made about the difficulty of these ones. Now, we had a meeting last week, and this issue came up. And I said to the group, and it's a POFON group, the Plantation Owners Forum of Nigeria, and I said to them that what we should help as a group to think about now is there were years when we had in Nigeria what government called the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme. You know, we tried that, it's off the hook now, it doesn't work anymore. So I said that what we should, advocacy we should be taking to government is how do we de-risk these people? Because the reason they want them to get all this is for purpose of security. But I must also say that one of the reasons CBN will ask for that is that if you are going to be a small holder, CBN will want to know that the land in which you are planting actually belongs to you, either by leasing or by outright ownership, so that they don't invest in that project. And tomorrow somebody surfaces with a court order that you don't own that land. And then that is gone. So it could be for 2 reasons that CBN is asking for that. So if this is the reason of proving ownership, then I support CBN. But in the reason, if it's reason as security for money, then we are already begin to say, how do we help to de-risk these people so that they can access that funding?
And I must thank you sincerely, Mr. Felix Onwucheka Nwawiko, Managing Director of Presco PLC and CIAT Nigeria Limited. Thank you for that powerful presentation, quite insightful, quite, well, knowledgeable. And I hope some other time we will have time to engage you more so as to tap from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Segun.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're moving over to the next panelist. I've just been told that Chief Alagoa is having some challenges with his device. I hope with that will be sorted out quickly. But we go straight to the third presentation, and this is driving economic growth in agriculture through mechanization. And we have panelists to talk to us. He is of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Federal Department of Agriculture, FCDA Complex, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. And of course, our presenter has attended and obtained certificate in primary school, secondary school, and of course, higher institution. Is an engineer. He has BSc Agric Engineering, and he has worked in several organizations, including Borno State College of Agriculture, where he was an assistant lecturer. And there he lectured Diploma 2 students in agricultural mechanics and supervised student final year examination. As part of his NYSC, he also took extensive services in area of inspection of issuers from various banks in Borno State and liaison with the NAIC headquarters in Abuja. And he has also done extensive work for the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Water Resources as Agric Engineer 1, and attended several activities and undertaken several key offices in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. As a senior Agric Engineer, 1997, and has risen to become a director and Federal Ministry of Agriculture and principal Agric Engineer. Held several offices, is married, and is quite intelligent enough to present this next topic on driving economic growth in agriculture through mechanization. Again, let me set the ground rule. We have 30 minutes for this particular paper, but we'll utilize 20 minutes of that for the presentation while we expect question and answers to come in for the next 10 minutes. Let me quickly welcome our next presenter, a distinguished gentleman. Please, let's welcome Engineer Abdullahi Garba Abubakar, Director, Engineering and Mechanization, Deputy National Project Coordinator, Green Imperative Project, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development, Federal Department of Agriculture, Abuja. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shehu. Let me start by thanking the organizers for inviting me to present this paper on mechanization in Nigeria. First and foremost, I'm the Director of Engineering and Mechanization in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. I will want to talk about the mechanization space in Nigeria, particularly in agriculture. And when I'm talking of agriculture, I'm talking about the subsects of agriculture, which has to do with livestock, fisheries, and land itself. So mechanization happens to be a cross-cutting issue. There is no aspect of agriculture that you cannot touch mechanization into it for sustainability. First and foremost, let me lay the background. Mechanization status of Nigeria is about 0.03 horsepower per hectare, one of the lowest in the world, far less than the FAO recommendation of 1.5 horsepower per hectare. You are also aware that Nigeria has 84 million hectares of arable land, and only 40% of it is under cultivation, hence the need for agricultural mechanization. Manual labor still dominates the agricultural activities of the country, making it less attractive to the youth willing to embrace agriculture, thereby leaving the practices in the hands of the aged who are weak to develop the practice in a modern way. Under all this, we now see the reason why Nigeria agriculture should be mechanized. To avoid proliferation of substandard machines and equipment, we have the National Center for Agricultural Mechanization in Ilorin to really certify and test agricultural machinery that are coming into this country. Also, to achieve a sustainable agricultural growth in the short term, medium term, and long term, we need to also mechanize. Therefore, mechanization policy is necessary for the Nigerian farmers, be it in the small, medium, and commercial, so that it can be sustainable for all. Presently, mechanization policy is a subset of the agricultural policy, but efforts are being made to see how agricultural mechanization policy could be developed to really see how all agricultural activities, particularly those that has to do with mechanization, are given a prime space to it. Looking at that, we have a lot of interventions and programs and projects that has to do with mechanization to develop the mechanization space of agriculture in Nigeria. There are so many of them, but most of recent that I will want to talk about is the Green Imperative, which has to do with a bilateral relationship between Nigeria and Brazil, where Nigerian government seeks to be part of the More Food International Program of Brazil, where Brazil has created that forum or program to see how it can assist the African countries. Presently, 4 African countries are already implementing the program. That is Mozambique, Ghana, all, and Zimbabwe, sorry. Kenya tried to go into that program, but they were not successful. Since that time, we have been going back and front to see that the program suits us, not that we are suitable for the program. The reason being that the other African countries that are benefiting from this project happen to go into the project to achieve production. But when we come to Nigeria, we look at our population, which is more or less not comparable to the other Ghana and Senegal. We now told the More Food International Program in Brazil that for us in Nigeria, if we really have to come into this program, we will want the value chain to be taken care of, from production, processing, value addition to marketing. For them, it was only the production aspect they looked at. But when we told them that for us, if we are able to increase production, what do we do with the products? We don't want to just limit ourselves to production and we create glut and there is no market for us. Rather, we want to get equipment that can process and add value to these products so that we can also sell them as a secondary product or at least a near a finished primary product. So the program was restructured in Brazil because of Nigeria for us to now see how we can include among the equipment that we want to take up to the processing level. The objective of this project in Nigeria is to develop our agricultural base on a sustainable private business model through a food value chain approach involving a full technology package transfer that will cover all stages from production to industrial processing and marketing. The project will be a landmark achievement to drive the agricultural sector of Nigeria to the next level. We are looking at when we get this equipment from Brazil, first and foremost, we are going to get them in completely knocked down form so that we can resuscitate our assembly plants in this country, who hitherto were moribund. We also want to see that we create jobs for our youth, those who have had the skill and those who don't have the skill, so that the OEMs that are bringing in this equipment will be able to now train and retrain our youth so that they will be able to assemble these tractors and equipment and become part and parcel of it to service them throughout the period of the loan. This loan is in kind, but it is worth 995 million euro or 1.2 million billion US dollars. It is in kind. Only part of it, maybe just about 15% or so, that will be for working capital. This working capital, we want to see how we can assist even the assembly plant to buy modern tools that can be used for the assembly or upgrade some of their equipment so that it can handle assembling of these tractors and the equipment. So also, we create a service center operators. The service center operators are those who are going to uptake these tractors from the assembly plant so that they can provide mechanization service to farmers at the farming level. They also need some kind of working capital, either to come up with the service center infrastructure or at least to maintain this equipment over a period, despite the fact that they will be using them for hiring services. So all these are structures we are trying to build up along the value chain. Then also the farmers can pay for the services they want, either harrowing, plowing, ridging, or even haulage, as the case may be, or even harvesting, because there could be some equipment that are for harvesting within the service center. So all these are going to be done within the framework of the Green Imperative Project. As I said, we are expecting to have 10,000 units of tractors, which will be distributed, not really distributed, but service centers could express interest to acquire them within the 774 local government areas. We also expect to have 50,000 units of assorted implement and equipment to be assembled in Nigeria. Under the service center arrangement, there will be a kind of sensitization as to how people can really vie for this service center operation. If in a local government, we have 2 or 3 people that express interest, this is going to be looked at based on merit for who actually merit to be given this service center to operate it. And by the calculation, if you look at 10,000 units, maybe but to be divided by 774, it will give you about 12 tractors per service center. We want to say it is not a must that a service center must have these 12 tractors. It depends on the interest. It depends on the type of operation that is available, because we have done the estimate. If a service center will have over 2,000 hectares, he can acquire these 12 units of tractors and he will be able to break even over the years, so that we don't want him to find himself in a trouble whereby he cannot pay the loan. So it is very clear that there are measures we are going to put in place to be able to make sure that a service center in a particular area merit being there, so that it's just not that I have it and I can do whatever I like with it. No, these tractors are not going to be yours until you offset paying them. And it is just going to be for you to pay 20% at the initial stage as a down payment. That will enable you to own this particular service center, looking at other criteria that you must have fulfilled. Under this project, the local banks are going to be used, particularly the central bank is at the center of it. They are going to engage those local banks that are going to be giving this working capital, and even the tractors that are going to be given in kind, it will be in their loan portfolios, so that at the end of the day, you are paying it back to the bank, and the bank will remit it back to the central bank. Central bank will now take care of paying it back to Brazil through the DMO, as the Debt Management Office. As I said, these local banks are going to be fully involved under the terms of this project. They may not be offering these loans at the interest rate of their own banks, but there is going to be an interest rate that will be structured basically for this. Particularly, despite the fact that there are risks they may take, because this thing will enter their own portfolio, there will definitely be a concessionary interest rate that will be given for this loan, which I believe it will be under single digits. We want to have 2 banks particularly participating from the foreign side. That is the Development Bank of Brazil and the Deutsche Bank. The Deutsche Bank are the ones that are going to give the cash component, that is for the working capital, whereas all the equipments are coming under the Development Bank of Brazil. Also, there is going to be insurance on this loan, particularly from the total loan from Brazil. In fact, the International Cooperation for the Insurance of Investment and Export Credit of the Islamic Development Bank are the one insuring it about 85%. Then the remaining 15% is being insured by the Brazilian Guarantees and Fund Management Agency, ABGF. They are the ones that are insuring these loans. But despite this cover that is being given, we want to be sure that this loan is paid within the stipulated time. We have 15 years, including 3 years of moratorium for the machinery and equipment and the inputs. While for the private bank, the Deutsche Bank, we have 7 years, including 2 years of grace period. That is the moratorium for the loan. We are also going to engage from that end, the shipment and logistics. This equipment will come from the Brazilian side into Nigeria through a syndicated shipment that will be done by the coordinating unit from Brazil, which is the SGV. They are the technical partners we have over there, while the technical partners in Nigeria will also be there to make sure that these equipment are shipped as at required. Also, the equipment providers. At the other end, just like we have the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria here, they also have the manufacturers, they call themselves the Machinery Builders Association, the ABIMAS. They are also under a very strategic consortium, whereby we cannot take any equipment from somebody outside that association. Particularly, those that are under the association have a regulation that they must fulfill before they become part of that association. And we are going to select our equipment from them to make sure that they are, the criteria set for them, they have all met those criteria, such as their company's financial and tax health, their company's proposal for the technical assistance and after-sales service to the service centers and the assembly plants, the company's proposal for training and capacity building in Nigeria for the service centers must be clearly spelled out. Then their product quality and suitability must also be ascertained. Then the price competitiveness of similar products in the market. We are going to look at them vis-a-vis the price in the market. We expect to have some clear reduction because the market rates, we will expect much lower rates from them. And that will be an advantage to our farmers also. Then the experience and performance in similar products. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Engineer Abdullah, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me?
Very well, and Engineer Abdullah, we can hear you.
Okay. Then, as I was saying, the experience and performance of these similar projects for Africa, we have to look at some of these association members that have participated in the other countries without really having problems. That is where we are going to lay our hands on. Then the good standing with the Brazil regulations on participating on similar international bilateral trade projects, and also compliance with the Brazilian financial crime regulations, such as money laundering, bribery, etc. So all those companies that are going to be selected must abide by this rule. And here in the country, we want to also look at some certain criteria for the selection of the private operators. The selection of these private operators to run the service centers on hire purchase principles will be in line with the technical criteria, such as financial and technical capacity of the candidate, evaluation of business plan, interview with the candidates, and ownership of sizable land situated in the midst of a primary producers in that particular local government. We don't want a situation whereby somebody somewhere will just hijack it and will not put them into use. We really want to see how we can increase the mechanization reach of our farmers. I have just read out the statistics, which give us a serious disadvantage. We are just about 0.03 horsepower per hectare, and that is not because of anything, but because our smallholder farmers cannot afford to buy tractors. But even though, now that we are bringing in these tractors for service centers to operate, we should expect that they will be able to pay the service and get this service done on their farms. Invariably, the moment you are able to increase the mechanization reach of a farmer, that will ultimately translate into increasing his yield, and that will give him the wherewithal to now own a tractor at a later stage because he has seen the advantage of it. So this project, as I said, is right now on ground. We are yet to commence because we are just waiting for the National Assembly to approve the foreign loan component so that this thing can come into the country. And we are also strategizing to sensitize the 6 geopolitical zones in this country to make sure that each and every person know what the benefits of this project is all about, how can he key in to get this benefit, and what will it do to the country in terms of mechanization. In a nutshell, mechanization has come to stay because we have agreed that subsistence agriculture will not take us anywhere. The population is increasing and the idleness is also there. So we really want to catch on the idleness of the youth and to increase the food production so that we can be food secured since the population is increasing. Let me just pause here. If there are any other questions that has to do with mechanization in Nigeria, I will be very much willing to answer. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Engineer Abdullahi Gaba Abubakar, the Director, Engineering and Mechanization and Deputy National Project Coordinator, Green Imperative, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Very informative session that is. And I believe that many of us who are interested in the agricultural sector will quickly key into some of the things that Engineer Abubakar has said to us. Now, I have one or two questions, and I also believe that other panelists may have questions, and those joining in may also have questions for Engineer Abdullahi. Now, actually, Engineer Abdullahi, you mentioned a little bit about what I had wanted to ask you, because it's some of the things you're saying to us, to me, it's news. And I wanted to ask, how many people, particularly those at the grassroots, are aware of this strategy, are aware of this project, and how to tap into this project? What are we doing about passing down this information? Because you see, information is power. We may have this good policy, and when people are not aware, then it will not bring the desired results.
Yes, thank you very much. Just as I said, the sensitization is on its way. Actually, we would have done this sensitization as far back as in October, if not because of the COVID-19. Not only that, we don't want to preempt the National Assembly because this document is before them. They are to work on it. We have briefed them internally, and we want to see how they have had our briefing, how it has been defended and ultimately approved at the National Assembly. As soon as this project is approved at the National Assembly, I want to assure you that we are going to flag off the sensitization in the 6 geopolitical zones. All the states have been earmarked, and we are ready with our banners, with flyers, and everything that needs to be dished out to the Nigerian populace so that they can understand the project and even see the benefits and how to key into the project to enable them benefit from the project. There are radio jingles also, and so many media advert that project.
Bit of information, but again, for me, you know, one thing is for something to be on the drawing table. Implementation is very key, and I particularly like the fact that you are targeting the smallhold farmers. But again, how do we begin beyond the sensitization, talking to them? There should be a face-to-face drive, because your desire is to ensure that they benefit in it. So talk to us more about the implementation strategy.
Good. Thank you very much. Just as I said, regarding the information being dished out to people to hear. In fact, at the caucus level where we're planning this implementation, a lot of issues have come to the table by saying that we need to have one-on-one discussion at the local government level so that the smallholder farmer at that local government level will know at the end of the day, there will be a service center in this local government where he can access mechanization. That is very important. And we have also said, this is not going to be under a government, but a private sector led. So we are sure that the private sector will want to make business out of this business. We are going to make sure that whatever he requires in terms of government support is given to him, because government is just the enabler to see that this loan has come to this country, but the loan is going to be paid back by the person who takes that loan. So it is not really government is just guaranteeing the loan, because Brazil government, under their own arrangement, they don't give out this loan to individuals. It's only government to government. And since Nigeria has secured this loan to its citizens, we want to make sure that the private sector takes that loan and make sure that he really gives out the services to those who desire it at the local government level, and then make sure that he gets back his money and pay back this loan as at when due. It is, as I said, a very long loan period, about 13 years. 3 years is just a moratorium for him to be able to see how the business look like and how he can. But if you are able to even make up what you think you can pay back before that 10 years, so be it, is fine. That is what we are saying. So really there will be one-on-one with the farmers at the lowest level, so that they can tap into this business and make sure that they pay for the services they are giving. And these services, I believe it is going to be very qualitative, because the tractors are there, the operators will be trained, and even the management will be very people conscious, so that they don't really scare people from getting this kind of business.
Quite interesting. Very, very giving, as you're giving all these examples, I'm beginning to think, because I am in the Niger Delta region, and I'm looking at our peculiar terrain and the challenges our farmers in the Niger Delta are facing, and how this will be of help to farmers, particularly in the Niger Delta. And someone just sent in a question, Mighty Man Dikoru sent in a question. I think the question is in the line of my thoughts. He said, one of the greatest problems or hindrance to farmers in the Niger Delta is that of land clearing. How can this new initiative help smallholder farmers to clear large land areas for use of real-time production? The land in this agroeconomy region is largely non-contiguous, making it possible for large tractorization. And that's Mighty Man Ayedikuro.
Yeah.
From Yenegua, by yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much. This issue has also been brought on the table. Fortunately, Mr. President recently launched the National Agricultural Land Development Agency, who are saddled with the responsibility of land clearing in this country. We want to believe as soon as this project is on board, the land clearing also will be on board, since they have already been launched. So where there is deficit of land, arable land, the structures there may be limited. But as soon as it's able to clear more land for them, because this will be based on request, I believe, or there will be a kind of mandate for the authority to clear certain hectares of land in each local government. I think I am trying to hear whether about 1,000 hectares. So if that is done, particularly that center will be the service center that these structures under the green imperative could be deployed. But for land clearing, because under this project, right from Brazil, they are looking at structures from 80 horsepower to 20 horsepower. These are the ones we can easily access. So it is going to be difficult for 80 horsepower to be used for land clearing in the forest zone. Definitely it has to be D8 or D6 bulldozers, which I believe it is under the purview of the Nigerian National Agricultural Land Development Agency. I believe this project is going to be working hand in hand with that particular authority to see where are the land that they have cleared, so that tractors could be deployed in that particular area. But again, I said this project is going to take care of the 3 subsectors of agriculture, be it and crop subsector. So it is very clear that that this particular project will look at the fisheries angle, where I know the Niger Delta is predominantly engaged in. There will be other aspects of equipment that will be available under this project for those in the fisheries subsector. So, as I said, the issue of land clearing can be tabled to the National Agricultural Land Development Authority.
so that their land can be cleared for possible engagement in agriculture or crop production. Thank you.
Engineer Abdullahi Gaba Abubakar, the Director, Engineering and Mechanization and Deputy National Project Coordinator, Green Imperative Project, Federal Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development, Abuja. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful presentation and also for that session, quite informative. Thank you so much. We quite appreciate it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, distinguished gentlemen, the panelists, we're moving ahead on this special webinar with the theme, Development of Agricultural Value Chain, an Alternative to a Monoculture Economy. Now, the next personality is a scientist, is a researcher, Dr. Richardson Uchenna Okechukwu is a senior scientist at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, and he's done several projects here in River State. Dr. Okechukwu has also done so much in the area of cassava commodity specialism and an outreach component of the African Development Bank sponsored project. And he has done so much in agricultural transportation and transformation and operating in 7 states in Nigeria. Is also done area as a project coordinator of the Cassava Transformation Agenda project. Dr. Richardson will be speaking to us on biogenetics development in agriculture as a catalyst for improving the nation's economy. Dr. Richardson, sir, if you're ready for us, and I will ask all the panelists to kindly mute their microphone. Dr. Richardson, thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, Shegu, and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. The topic today is quite interesting, and I'm sure everybody knows that presently in Nigeria, the only way to diversify and create a sustainable economy is through agriculture. The way we want it in this country has a lot of reasons. Dr. Norman Borlaug once said that you cannot potential for Africa to solve its. Can you hear me?
Very well, very well.
Okay, yes. So he said that you cannot eat potential. For Africa to solve its food problems, it must get 6 things right: technologies, policies, market, political will, financing, and infrastructure. Today, so many people are living on less than $1 per day. And with this COVID, millions also have entered in even lower than the $1 margin. The root cause of food problems in Africa is deeply structural. I sit in a position where I get to meet with a lot of investors who want to enter into agriculture, young people who want to try out their hands in agriculture, and you just wonder, with so much interest, why only very few are hitting the ground. And I will come up with some reasons that come to my mind. This one of them is what Mr. Felix has very much talked about, which is on policy somersault. We need agricultural policies in this country that are consistent and can transfer from one government administration to another government administration, from one political party to another political party. Agriculture does not have to be political. We just need to set our targets right, and whoever comes so many people who are living just from this agricultural sector. Very important information that is always lacking for anybody that wants to invest in agriculture is real-time statistics. It's very difficult for no matter the commodity, it's always very difficult for anybody starting to know, where do I search for data on production, the yield, what variety, where, what is being produced here. You may get some national figures from the federal ministry in Abuja, but you may not even get that in the States. You will not, if you find it, you have to find somebody that will find somebody and they will give you bits and pieces of information. So having this kind of statistics is key. If you don't know where you are coming from, you will not know how to change. Everybody must not suffer the same problems other pioneers have suffered in a particular enterprise, because I'm sure if one should want to get into oil palm now, we shouldn't suffer the problems that Obama and all these people have already suffered before where they are today. But where do you get this kind of information that is easy for investors to take or young people to take a decision on? We also not have a know about the market, you can't develop the product. You won't know how to enter the market. There's a lot of good business happening informally on every commodity. If you go to the major markets, there are people who are there, somebody is in charge of beans, somebody is in charge of rice, and all this informal sector, and they control the prices and everything. If you produce, let's say, 1 ton of gari today, you can't just take it to any market to sell. When you get there, somebody will tell you, no, this is the price you will sell. You can't sell this or you get out of this place. No, so the person will not consider what it cost you to produce it, but that is how it is. So for anybody going to invest in agriculture, market is where to start, but you need good information to enable you look at the price there and work backwards towards your production and everything so that you can fit into what will make you gain. Where are the sources of the technical knowledge? A lot of knowledge is out there. There is nothing new in any crop we are producing or any animal that we are raising that is purely new. Is for you to know where to search for. We need to have this kind of information, easy to be accessed and so on. Mr. Felix mentioned the research institutes. That is where it should be, but what kind of information and what quality do you get there? So a rethink on the research institute, a rethink on the extension services that are in the States, a rethink on the various ministries of agriculture, and integration of agric with Ministry of Water Resources, with Ministry of Environment, with Ministry of Trade. There has to be some form of integration because these are the kind of network that will enable that investor to get things right. We should also understand that most of our soils are getting poorer. We have always been farming this land or using this land in one way or the other over years. That's why people keep on going to clear, looking for fresh land and so on. There are solutions that can bring intensification, but there is an urgent need to have some real form of national reevaluation of our soils, of our land. Every state must not grow everything, must not. But you can know what you have and you can know the way you can manage your fertility program. The time of giving blanket fertilizer for the whole country is a thing of past. We should have this kind of information on land and fertility that will enable that farmer to know what inputs to acquire to put into that land. So no matter the improvement in our crops and our varieties through normal breeding, because we don't have so much GMO in Nigeria, if the fertility of the soil is not good, then you can't get that appropriate yield that you are expecting to get. The issue of land tenure is a real problem that hinders a lot of the rural farmers, the small farmers. The big farmers can invest in it, they have more it and get better deals. But the small farmers, they rent land per year, per season. And by the time they clear that land, if they stump the land, the next year they might not get that land. Don't know the land might want to take his land back. And so this is a problem And I'm glad to hear that from Abdullahi's presentation, there are issues towards this, but it has to be from ground up. We can't make policies from Abuja concerning land without meeting the communities, the chiefs, the owners of lands, to start looking at how they can put into use the agricultural lands that are in their communities such that it benefits all. Most of the crops we grow are arable crops. They are not permanent crops, unless you go to cocoa, oil palm, plantain, and so on, which investors there may consider buying or long lease for those land. But the other commodities are not permanent crops, and we can do quite a lot with the land that is there. In the northern part of Nigeria, the land is there, apart from the problem of the security that is there now. Even having the mechanization, we solve a lot of our food needs. Now, let us look at some of the choices of enterprise that people have to consider. If I come down to River State, okay, you have things like cassava, yam, plantain, spices, vegetable, fisheries, snailry, the fruit, trees, rubber, cocoa, oil palm, cattle, goat, piggery, poultry are all very important. But for each of these, it is very important that we consider improved seeds, improved varieties. And there is a lot that the private sector has done in the poultry to get us very good breeds. There's a lot they have also done in the fishery. And for most of the crops like cassava, yam, ITA has produced a lot of great varieties that just replacing your old seed with these new varieties, you double your yield without changing any other thing in the way you grow the crop. They are all there, but how much of this is accessible and knowledgeable and known to the investors in the various states? We need to get how to bring this back home and make it also affordable for them to afford it. The structures are there, as has been mentioned, but they are not actually very functional and beneficial to most of the farmers. For instance, there used to be ROTEP, which had the mandate to multiply root and tubers after they have been released for farmers. Okay, and then it goes to the ADPs. But these structures are just there by name. They are not well financed to be able to multiply these things in large volumes for people to buy it cheaper. So it's a good opening and opportunity for private sector to get into seed production or improve variety growth so that people can also get these things cheaper. We should also look at the issue of transforming seasonal crops that always get wasted. A good investment in managing those crops that get wasted when it is season and turn them into a product that can be used long time in shelf will provide us with a lot of food. We have a lot that we've produced, but a lot goes wasted. Mangoes, when it's in the season, after some time is gone. You don't see any fresh mango again. Star apple, when it's in season, after some time is gone. You don't see it anymore. So investing in transforming some of these perishable fruits that we need or keeping them long is a good investment. I don't know why we can keep on having apple for the whole year. You can always get fresh apple the whole year, and we don't grow the apples. Meanwhile, we can't have the mangoes. We can't have the oranges. We can't have those things unless you get the imported one. Even the banana, we can't have. Investment in this will help. So reduction in waste and transforming them into non-perishable products is a very great investment to go into in helping our agriculture. We should also look at the issue of labor. Everybody plants, but most people don't consider that labor, getting the right quality of persons is very difficult because There are no vocational schools that really train the young people or people on how to do some of these tasks you need in the farm operations. Most of them learn on the job. And by the time you think they have gotten the experience, they are either leaving or they feel they are not well paid or one reason or the other. So our labor, we need to have a way of getting back the schools, getting the practical back into the system and getting more people coming out. Even when they have read other subjects like philosophy, sociology, and so on, we can still put in these skills in them if it is planned to. In fact, if we take the 10 months that is spent on NYSC and put the whole NYSC on agriculture, NYSC has got land all over Nigeria and put some machines there and put some stuff there. I'm sure the food and the money they'll be raising will be more than the budget NYSC is getting. And they'll come out with that skill and we go to join themselves into groups and be doing some good businesses. So looking at that labor as a matter now brings home the issue of the topic that Abdullahi have discussed, which is mechanization. So whoever is going to get into agricultural business must know that it cannot do without mechanization. If you don't mechanize, you cannot drop cost of production. If you don't mechanize, you cannot process into a high value products. If you don't mechanize, you cannot keep to the standards and the quality that is expected of that product, and so it will be limited to where it can be sold and how it will be sold. So cost of these machines need to be looked into, and the policy surrounding machines in Nigeria also needs to be really addressed properly. I know the time that government used to invest in importing tractors and land development equipment, by the time it's brought to Abuja, it's distributed to the states, and then you find some state governors that will even sell their own tractors to other states, to other private people. And it never benefits anyone, and you now wonder where all these tractors that came, everything is gone. No, people want to farm now, but they don't know where to go and hire tractor. They don't know where to go and hire one implement or the other. And so we are still back to square one of using hoe and cutlass, over how many years of Nigeria existence. It is very important that we must not forget that as we are improving varieties, the pests and diseases are also biological materials. They are also changing and adapting. So training and knowledge of the various pests and diseases that go with any particular commodity anybody chooses is very important. And it is good you avoid most of the diseases by using the improved varieties or the improved animal for that, and you can get something better. Farm security is also very key. Many people have lost their investments through theft, through fire, through cattle going into their farms, and so on. So it is a key thing that must be a key input in any feasibility study that you are doing for your investment and to plan for that. You must also know that when you are doing your business in certain communities, you have to have some form of a relationship with the community. Make sure you have a way of giving them some jobs and some things so that it will be a win-win for everybody. Farm business records are also very important. I have seen many farms where you have and cluster farming cannot also be overlooked. In fact, I advise anybody going into crop agriculture to start at the level of processing. If you start at the level of processing and you are sited in a place where farmers are growing your input, you develop a network. Start buying from them before you start developing your own land. Your own land should be more like a backup to what you are doing. And then when you bring in these improved seedlings, you are a better person to now transfer this technology. Need every help they can get. Many of them continue to remain poor because what they are producing is just the raw product. And when you want to buy it, you're going to price it so low that they don't have any gain. But they sell it to you because they really don't have any choice but to sell it. If they keep it, it will perish. If they don't sell it, they won't get that small money they need to pay for school fees or pay for one meeting or the other. So they are down there. So the only way to uplift them is to bring in processing. And we need to bring in processing to these communities, and it is very important that we do that, having clustered these farmers and be able to get into it. We must also recognize the market actors in whatever we do. So this issue of value chain is very important. For any commodity you choose, you must look at the actors that are there. There is also the issues of standards. We can't continue to produce anyhow. Quality wise is very important. It gives us price. I'm very happy when I get into some supermarkets these days and I can see beans, I can see gari, I can see all the things I normally see in the market. I see there, I even see some soup in some of the shops. We need to have standards. And it's very good that everybody gets that right. So it's not like you take one and tomorrow you have to go to.
Hello, Dr. Okechukwu. I think your mic is mute.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
But you have 60 seconds to round up, sir.
Okay, I'm almost there. So the issue of standards is very important, and as well, you know that most of our markets use local measures in their sales. But for us, we need to standardize, get to kg, get to some repackaging weight that is comparable. So other key agri opportunities that are there, where I think is also needed, is on this equipment hiring outfits. We need it. We also need quality input, herbicides, fertilizer, suppliers in the rural communities. There's a lot of adulteration that is out there. So it negates whatever thing you have done in plant breeding. By the time you are using wrong herbicide and you are using wrong fertilizers in what you are doing. We need education and training of farmers and extension services. And we have to have a way of turning our radio into somewhere we can actually promote agriculture. We play a lot of music and we spend a lot of time on fashion. We can also do the fashion of agriculture and have it there. But it costs a lot. So I don't know who is to invest in this, but I think it is a good place that you can get the national movement if you are really wanting to shift to agriculture. So I would like to say that we need the help of government on credit. We need the help of government on food banks. We need food banks. We need silos. We need marketing board. We need this thing because when you produce and you cannot store, then you are subject to any problem that will come tomorrow and there is no food. We have closed the border. The price did not come down because we don't have warehouses and food store that we stored before we close the border. So it is very important that that is also addressed. So by conclusion, everybody must not be a farmer, but you can study a value chain and then you can pick a point of engagement. And so there to be a win-win for everybody to get it right. Thank you.
Dr. Okechukwu Richardson, thank you so much, sir, for that impactful presentation. Thank you so much. And I believe that everyone benefited from that. Again, we'll be expecting questions for Dr. Okechukwu Richardson. And if you have the question, yes, I think we have a question here. but I'm not sure if this is for Dr. Okechukwu Richardson. Emeka wants to send in a question, and Emeka wants to say, I am a custom licensed agent. Recently, there is increase in tariff. I believe that this is for Engineer Abdullahi. I said recently there is an increase in tariff importation. Does this encourage the said diversification of agriculture? And what does federal government tend to achieve through this policy? Again, said so many people want to be involved in export of produce, and there are so many bottlenecks, thus discouraging them. ONE has a contain with one said, well, one has to contain with one certification to the other. Even loan to support it is difficult to get. With these, what is government actually sincere with diversification? I think Engineer Abdullahi or Dr. Okechukwu might just help us. If we can just answer that question in 2 minutes. Let me start with Dr. Okechukwu, that last question.
My answer to this will be just what I've said, that all the ministries and all the departments need to work together. You can't have one ministry promoting agriculture and another ministry is blocking importation. I know there is a law that allows no taxation for agricultural equipment importation in the country. Inside this country, we also have institutes that have the mandate to produce machines. We have UNCAM, we have them all there, PRODA, and so on. Why are they not working? Why are they not functioning? This technology is not from the moon. It's already there. I have seen prototypes of tractors from UNCAM. Why is it not mass produced? So I will say that there needs to be, maybe from the presidency, a connection between all sectors that have to do with agricultural development, because it's not tied to just one ministry.
As I comment, if Engineer Abdullahi is still online, Engineer Abdullahi would also like to get a response, particularly on this issue of increase in tariff for importation of tractors. Okay. I want to assume that Engineer Abdullahi is not connected. Well, I want to thank you so much, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar. It will be the right time to go to the last presentation today. And the last presentation from our last panelist is Chief David Alagoa. Chief David Alagoa is a very important personality. David Alagoa was born on September 26, 1961 in Port Harcourt, River State, and hails from Nimbe, Obulumabri, Nimbe local government area of Bayelsa State. He had his early life in Lagos and attended University of Lagos Staff School, where he obtained his first school leaving certificate in 1972. He then proceeded to the famous CMS Grammar School, Bariga, Lagos, for his secondary school education and obtained a West Africa examination certificate in 1977. The young Alagoa at the time then traveled abroad for further studies at the Redriff School, Andover, England, for both ordinary and advanced level between 1977 and 1980. He later bagged Bachelor's of Arts in Drama at Loughborough University, England in 1983. Not done, David Alagoa enrolled for a postgraduate diploma in international study and therefore had his Master's of Art in Diplomatic Studies at Keele University, also in England, in 1989. A voracious reader and scholar, has special research area to cover studies in third world politics, strategic studies, international law and human rights, global political economy, and politics of international economic relation. Upon his return to Nigeria after many years of academic sojourn abroad, David Alagoa had very interesting work experience with established organization. After his one-year mandatory service to the nation, he joined the Faculty of Political Science and Sociology, University of Port Harcourt, as a research assistant between 1990 and 1992. He was involved in other activities until 1997, when he joined the IPCO Nigeria Limited, the company involved in oil and gas construction in Lagos and River State. He held various positions, include corporate administration and personal management, until he left in 2002. 2003, he joined the multinational logistic company Intel's Nigeria Limited, and for 15 years career, long experience that had shaped his work culture for efficiency and productivity. At various times, his job description covers community relations, security management, government relations, immigration relations, public relations, group aviation services, and transport sector. And of course, he's had several other positions. He's a man with deep conviction for a better society and to always positively impact his environment. David Alagua remains a foundational member of the People's Democratic Party since 1999 and took the bold step in 2019 to serve Bayelsa State when he picked the PDP gubernatorial form. He later withdrew from the race to support the incumbent governor. He's a brilliant man with great upbringing, sound academic background, vast corporate experience in bringing real values to the Prosperity Administration, and is a member of the Bayelsa State Executive Council. It is a great pleasure to have joining us this afternoon for his presentation, Chief David Alagua. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Chief David Alagua, can you hear us? Well, I think the administrator needs to get across to Chief David Alagua. Chief David Alagua was online a while ago. I think the administrator needs to get a code. Okay. Now, I just received a confirmation that the administrator has reached Chief David Alagua. So we're expecting Chief David Alagua.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Very well, sir. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Very well, I can hear you, and good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I know it might be challenging from Bayelsa there. Yes, I understand the network. So,
it is. The network is a bit
so over to you now. Great. Let's have your presentation, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I've been here in Bayelsa, the Commissioner for Agriculture, for 3 months now. Those what you didn't add in the biodata was that I've been a farmer all my life. If you look at all my studies and everything I've done, I've never ever been to school anywhere to learn about agriculture. But it's been a passion, a thing that one has done right from when. Can you hear me?
Very well. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
I can hear you clearly,
something
sir.
that I have done all my life. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I've always had a rabbit or a dog or a pig or something. And that's a passion, I think, that along the way the only business I've ever run is a farm. And I think that's a passion that, by the grace of the good Lord, has brought me here as commissioner. It was interesting that all the while we were politicking and campaigning and all that, they'd always known that, oh, David, that one is a farmer, that, you know, that farmer politician. So I think that really sort of helped my reputation. That's brought me here now, as it is, as commissioner. So yeah, you know, the development of agricultural value chain and alternative to monoculture. Let me take this from the perspective of my experience and try and marry that with what I've seen in the last 3 months here in Bayelsa. I joined this this Zoom just when I had the last speaker, and he had mentioned 6 things that needed to be put right to solve the agricultural and food security challenge in Nigeria. He mentioned technology, policy, market, etc., down to infrastructure. And I think from my experience, that's, you know, those all hit the nail on the head. Everything he has mentioned is exactly what we need, what I experience as a farmer and in my business till tomorrow, and what we need here in Bayelsa. Let me go back some months, 6-7 months back when COVID was started in this state in Nigeria, about March. There was a very serious problem here. I don't know if that was typical of other states, but in Bayelsa, what was, you know, a bunch of plantain, for example, that was going for 2,500, it automatically became 10,000 naira. The same went for Gary and all the foods to make it that there was absolutely no food security in this state and of first in this state. We are geographically in between delta and rivers, and a lot of the food that we have comes from those states because And that's, you know, we for example, are totally flood ridden. We have a totally different farmers calendar. You know, whereas, for example, where I lived before now in Rivers, we would start our farming, our planting season would start probably about January, February. Here, the floods have just ended, and the floods will come back again in September. So we very, very quickly have to start planting now. If you don't plant now, if you want a 1-year run, you're not going to get it for your cassava, you're not going to get it for your plantain. And these are the two things that we traditionally would plant here in terms of crop. So we find that every year we are running this calendar that apparently always just gets us into the flood. And so what we're trying to do in the ministry here is to get people to rethink their farming calendar. We must start planting in November to be able to achieve some just early September, because the floods have become a total challenge, and as it is now, perhaps a permanent challenge to us. So, you know, those are one of the challenges that we're having here. We also don't have I would say the culture of farming big scale. And so a lot of what we have are subsistence farmers. We don't have capacity to farm much. And so we run this perennial never having food, and this total dependent. So when you market, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, Chief David Alagwa, we are with you. Door cracky. Yes, I think you might just change the position of your network so as to make it a little bit stronger. That's it. Yes. If you would just do that, I think we will have a better audio. It's a little bit cracky. But you can go ahead, sir. Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, now we are having challenge hearing you now.
Again.
We are having slight challenge hearing you now. Can you hear us, sir?
It's raining very aggressively here. Maybe that's what's affecting the network.
David Alagwa, some 2 minutes.
It's raining, a lot of rain. Maybe that's affecting the network.
I now understand. I now understand. But let's just manage what we can get from your presentation.
We don't, like I was saying, we don't even have, for us to exploit this alternative, we need to even have enough land cleared. We don't have that capacity. We don't have the type of land also, and these are all the challenges that we discuss every day with farmers. You know, tenure of land, I mean, they are very small portions. So we are very, very much at the subsistence. Farmers are financially not included. You know, there's security issues. Are you hearing me? I'm
Yes,
trying
sir.
to move around as I talk.
Very well, yes, we can hear you now.
All these issues come to play. And you know, we need to empower our people with things as basic as land, tools. We traditionally, there are not enough farmers here. Are you hearing me? I'm getting
Yes,
very
sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you.
And then I remember that when I came in here, for example, we've had the benefit of some financial assistance from people like the central bank, for example, who have come with certain projects to assist farmers. Now, the fundamental problems that we have, I think somebody else mentioned earlier, statistics. I mean, where are these farmers anyway? You know, we have people who would say, okay, I'm a rice farmer, and then there are 20 rice farmers, all in different capacity. Now, if you don't have proper statistics, proper data, you are working with figures that are totally wrong. And I think we found that as well with our projects. A lot of the farmers also, are you hearing me? I'm getting very
Now you can go ahead, sir. I will
farmers,
let you know when we're not getting. Yes, good.
Yeah, we had issues with who, and you know, I don't know how to put this, but literacy levels. And because of that, you know, a lot of our farmers are not financially included, you know, so you're coming with loans, but who are you going to reach? Now, what happens effectively is you have portfolio farmers who are going and grabbing what is there from these funds that are available. And once you are dealing with that level of farm or farmer, you are not at the end of the day. It's raining like mad, and so I'm having to shout because I'm.
This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say, sir, Chief Alagoa. If you would just do it in 5 minutes, because we don't want you to stress yourself. We quite understand the difficult terrain. Maybe 5 minutes, you can just wrap up. That will be okay, sir.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Okay, I think what I'll do is I will just sort of very, very quickly just.
Yes, just summarize in 5 minutes. Summarize in 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah. Our food security has been a major problem, as we found out during the COVID. A lot of our food comes from outside the state. The farmers, if you know, for us to develop this alternative, we have to look at the issue of floods and also our farming calendar, because in Bayelsa State we appear to have a calendar that's an opening of 9 months most of the year. For the 3 months we're underwater. We have issues of cleared or uncleared land as it is. A lot of the land that we have is primary forest because we've not had that sort of long run over time of farming. And so there's issues with cleared land. Our greatest challenge has been that I remember there were funds that came from central bank and rates that were fixed, for example, to clear land in the north, in places like Kano, were rates that were used here, and so we could never quite achieve to clear the desired hectareage. What rates that were given were perhaps 1/4 the rates that is required to clear lands, the bushes, the thick forest here. So whereas we get a loan, for example, to clear 100 hectares, we would only be able to achieve, because the central, you know, a lot of these loans that come are fixed on specific items. And so we could only achieve perhaps 25% of what we were meant to achieve with those particular funds. We have serious security issues that you know here. These are all the things that we here at this end need to look into and seriously develop if we are going to have this alternative. One very obvious one also is the attitude to farming here. You know, it's not a thing that we're particularly used to. Even if you go in fishing, we're a bit more comfortable with, and a lot of our successes have been recorded in that regard. But even there, if you are going to go, you know, fairly large scale, we're going to go beyond subsistence. We have these issues that still apply, issues of being financially not included, security theft. you know, floods perhaps also affect fishermen and their ponds. You know, there's data. We don't have any data. We are working on a blank sheet. We are waiting to. We are all the while appear to be walking backwards. But I know that as long as we keep at it, we would eventually start putting a face to agriculture. I think in a nutshell also, and without being political or critical or targeted at anybody, agriculture had been negated and ignored definitely in the last 15 to 20. Working in the ministry where we have, from what I've noticed, huge capacity, but huge capacity of people just sitting in the office. I mean, our extension rooms don't go anywhere. Our extension offices are never used. It's just, you know, when you look at the whole sort of is it political will up until now, there's been no, you know, they've never shown any preference for us. So that's the context in which we work. It's a very challenging one, but I think that it's one that's possible. And luckily now we appear to be going to a phase where it's given priority. And these are all the issues that we're looking at in order to develop a culture of agriculture in this state, a culture that would encompass, I think most importantly, get the people involved in the whole sort of value chain of agricultural production here. It's you know, if we didn't think it would be possible, we wouldn't be here. We think that it is definitely possible. It's an uphill task, but it can definitely be achieved. And I know that we will get there. It just takes a bit of time. And I think also very importantly, it requires even the farmers out there to understand and appreciate that the ministry is now ready to work with them. You know, that's one thing I find is there appears to be so much apprehension of, you know, is it going to work? It's not going to work. We've done this before, but it didn't work type of attitude, even from the farmers here. So our work becomes almost want to convince in the first place. But we're all hopeful. We've brought together a team of very successful farmers, people who have been in the bureaucracy of farming, and people who are actual farmers now. And we're trying to come together to put all our experiences together and define a way forward that would, at the end of the day, guarantee us firstly food security. I think that's where our focus is. There is also another dimension to what we do in terms of trying to increase the IGR with commercialized large-scale farming. That's a totally different thing altogether. But there's also talk and a lot of expectation in that regard. But I think for us at this stage, food security is the greatest challenge, and that's where we are putting a lot of our focus in. So is that summarized enough? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Any question?
Well done, yes. Yeah. I think there would be a question. Chief David Alagua is the Commissioner for Agriculture and Biostate. He's a gentleman with vast experience, and he just said there that, well, he is a farmer, and that's the first job he's done by himself. He's a farmer because he's been into farming a very long time. And apart from that, he's worked with various organizations where he has shown his character of excellence, and we're expecting that this same character would put to work in Biostate, where he's the Commissioner for Agriculture. Once again, we want to thank you, Chief David Alagua. Despite the difficulty in the network, you've just made it to deliver that report to us. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a question coming in, and I also think Dr. Richardson might just want to say one or two things there, because you see some of the issues we raise are things that Dr. Richardson talked about, and also Engineer Abubakar also mentioned in their presentation to what the Honorable Commissioner in Biostate has said. But again, Tekena Braid is asking, what kind of crops do you think can be cultivated in a flood-prone area like yours in Biostate? Because you told us that, well, it rains virtually all around the year, and right now your focus is on cassava and plantain. Well, that's predominantly what the farmers engage in Bayelsa State. But again, he wants to know what more is the Bayelsa State government willing to do? What other crops are you willing to introduce? Chief Dedio Alago, I don't know if you got that. Did you get that, sir?
I got your question. Can you hear me?
Very well now.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that rice is our first priority. So it's rice, cassava, and plantain. Rice is definitely flood friendly, and so with the emphasis first and foremost is rice. Our challenge with rice also here again is land, cleared land, which you require. You need that expanse. We don't have that, but yes, we are prioritizing that. We are also making all efforts to clear as much as possible in terms of land to be able to plant rice. We would like to think that a year or two from now, we would be the major rice producing state in this country. So that during the flood, as the flood is receding, we can quickly plant and we can probably get 2 or 3 crops a year. That's our focus. Rice is the other one, is because it's also, our soil is also very, very cassava friendly. Cassava has a shorter, we don't have enough, a huge run for the cassava calendar. However, if we can plant very early, which we are doing now, we can still harvest before the flood. And then we also have here a cassava factory that produces 60 metric tons of cassava a day. So we need something like 240 metric tons of cassava. That's what we are hoping to, would run the factory. Well, we realize, of course, that we will need to buy from outside the states as well. But that's why cassava came in, because it starts this sort of industrial capacity that we would have in the state. But in terms of food, definitely rice and plantain are huge priorities.
Yeah, fantastic. And we have another question here. I'm thinking some other panelists might just want to ask a question here. And Tekena also is asking, prior to oil, Nigeria was a major exporter of cash crops from which it earned huge foreign exchange to run the economy. Since oil is a dwindling resource, how can we return agriculture back to its prime? Maybe I would just allow, because also Bayelsa is a hub for oil and gas. I'm going to allow Chief Alagoa to answer that question. How are you looking at agriculture as a major source of income earner? Mr. Felix Nwabuko to also answer that. Chief David Alagoa, please. Okay, while Chief David Alagoa is trying to get his network correct, I will allow Mr. Felix Nwabuko to look at that. Okay, fine. So one of the participants is asking that prior to oil, Nigeria was a major exporter of cash crops from which it earned huge foreign exchange to run the economy. Since oil is in the and I know Bayelsa is hub for oil and gas. So what are your policies, your vision of making agriculture a huge income earner for Bayelsa? That, if you got that, sir. Hello? Okay, maybe I should allow Mr. Felix Nwabuko to answer that question.
Yeah, okay. Shagun, repeat the question. Let me.
So one of the participants is asking that prior to oil, Nigeria was a huge exporter of cash crops from which it earned huge foreign exchange to run the economy. And since oil is a dwindling resource, how can we return?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Agriculture.
Hello? I lost
Yes.
you, Shagun. I lost you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
The network playing a fast one. So we're looking at bringing back cash crops from the agriculture as huge foreign revenue earner, particularly looking at states like Bayelsa Rivers State.
The network is not communicating.
Okay, now, can you hear me better now?
Now you're better. I can hear you better now.
All right, very well. So we're looking at making cash crops huge foreign exchange earner for the country, particularly states like Rivers, Bayelsa, the Niger Delta states would focus so much on oil and gas. What should they begin to do as a way of urgent policy direction?
To achieve that, I think the very first thing to do is actually to present the sector as a credible money-making sector. And that's why when we talk, we always like to use the term agribusiness in preference to agriculture. Agriculture as a sector, agribusiness as the activity. Long before now, when oil took over, what has happened is that we have relegated agriculture and agriculture to just subsistence. So first of all, let's realize that it is a credible money-making venture. That should be our mindset, that people go into agriculture, not just for subsistence levels, but to drive business. Just like a lot of people, I've said it in some places, when you go, there's a time in this country, even now, when you say people, in which sector are you operating? And they will say to you, I am in the oil sector. Even people who sell cellophane bags, to service certain things, say, I'm operating in the oil sector because they have LPOs coming from Ajip and Shell and ELF and all that. So not bad at all. But because they saw the crude oil sector as a money-making venture, so an LPO to supply sector, they said, I operate in the oil and gas sector. So let that mentality come to agriculture. That agriculture also provides a credible means of making money beyond subsistence levels. And so that people who also supply stationery there will say, I am in the agri sector. That's the first thing. Tinker with our mindset. That's the biggest thing. The mindset that has been turned around, let's turn it back to agriculture. And then the rest will follow.
I think that's very critical. When you change the mindset, then everything is possible. Now, I don't know if we have Chief David Delagoa back with us. Chief David Delagoa, can you? Okay, well, I think we are having challenge with the network there. But again, I want to thank all of our panelists, and thank you so much for being part of this very interesting and informative web seminar. In the last more than 2 hours, we've been on this talking on how to develop agricultural value chain as an alternative to a mono economy, the rivers, and so once again, I just want to welcome Mr. Ebifri Bob Manuel for closing remarks. It's been a very interesting conversation the last more than 2 hours. So what would be your closing remarks, sir?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, panelists, our moderator, Mr. Shego Walabi. We're very grateful for your very valuable, I think this is from the fulcrum of our communique that we're going to reach out with to the policy makers, the state governments, and to see how we could jumpstart it to breathe it, you know. For me, the take-home phrase for me is going to be agriculture as a business, other than agriculture as a pastime, because true to type, agriculture is indeed a business that is very, very profitable. We need to take that very seriously and we need to look at it for what it is. Now, we need to have at the back of our mind for this to work, we need to mechanize. We need to go from subsistence farming to mechanized agriculture. You know, we need to improve on our seedlings, the kind of seedlings that we expose our farmers to, so they don't suffer too much and they get much of the yield. You know, we need to improve upon the processing and all whatnot. So the bottom line of it is the revolution has started, and Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum will be partnering with the major stakeholders in and we'll say thank you once again, and we look forward to our next webinar. But the next webinar is going to be on the manufacturing sector, and we want to x-ray the manufacturing sector going forward and to see how we could prefer solutions to it. And in doing all of this, we'll be working very closely with the policymakers. So thank you. We're most grateful for your time to have been here with us. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. Bifri Bobmano. And may I sincerely appreciate our panelists, Mr. Felix Nwabuko, a very insightful and very powerful presentation you made there. Thank you so much, sir. Quite appreciate it. And also, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture, Bayelsa State. We are hoping to host this webinar sometime in Bayelsa State, and maybe we could bring to fore some of the issues that you've raised. Thank you so much to David Alagoa for also painting the picture of what it is in Bayelsa State. Engineer Abdullahi Garba Abubakar, your presentation quite informative, and also your willingness to assist, particularly to assist the local farmers, and this is quite appreciative. Thank you so much, Engineer. And also Dr. Okechukwu Richardson, thank you so much, sir, for the wealth of knowledge and also for willing to provide assistance any day, anytime. So I want to thank every one of you, and my special appreciation to Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum, 100% private sector and non-governmental, non-political, and non-profit making organization. Thank you so much for taking up this initiative. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.